set up here. So, waiting for a few moments to get this all set in place. And we're almost there, getting ready. So just hang out for a few minutes. Still getting used to doing these, setting up these channels here for doing these. So we are going to the Indian Ocean today. Okay, part of our culture, land, and people clearing. And we are going to the Indian Ocean. Hello, Bhavna, just joined in. Thanks you for showing up. It's going to be fun. And so it came up to do the Pacific Ocean. So we've started with the Pacific Ocean, and it was such an amazing experience. And I figured, okay, we're going to continue moving west. So heading towards the Indian. What? You're funny, Bhavna. She says, "Hey, sexy." Yes, that's the whale talking. The whale swimming around the ocean. Yeah, it was a fantastic experience with the Pacific Ocean. So it's basically about clearing up the human trash that's been just piling up in the oceans. And there are a lot of cultures that are part of the ocean, or the ocean is part of a lot of cultures, especially with all those islands out there. So moving on to the Indian Ocean. Yeah. And so that's kind of perfect. So here's a comment. I feel so feminine. I see you're feminine. Yes. And so that feels like that's a really good connection there for the ocean. So the Indian Ocean, and there's the extensions of the Indian Ocean, because I looked on a map to see exactly what's the definition. And so it's from Australia to Africa, and then from the Asian continent to the Antarctic. But over by India, there's like on one side, there's the Bengal Sea, and on the other side, I can't remember. But those areas are going to be included because they are really just sort of like extensions if you look at the formation. So we're going to get started here. So if you want to just kind of take a moment to get settled in yourselves and in your bodies, and becoming really present in your physical body. So yeah, relaxing into that. And wow, feel the water already. I feel like I'm completely submersed in water here. So that's kind of a cool feeling. And letting yourself drop down to the core of the earth. Dropping all the way down. Yeah, still going through the ocean here into the earth part of the globe. There we go, into the core. Really connecting deep. And on your next in-breath, just bringing all that energy back up to the top. Oof. Nice deep breath. And settling into whatever you're sitting, or if you're standing or lying down on. And letting yourself come into your physical bodies just a little bit more, because here we are dealing with a substance that's very moving. Bay of Bengal, yeah, okay. And the Arabian Sea, very nice. Beautiful names. But they're very open to the Indian Ocean, so it's everything's going to get included here. And actually, when we were working on the Pacific Ocean last time, it did flow over into that area, of course. As we found with the land clearings, there's the human boundaries of countries, and then there's cultural boundaries, which are very different. And then people boundaries also, which are very different than the official country boundaries. So the same with the ocean. So coming into our core alignment, and yes, the purity of it, of life coming in here. So taking a nice deep breath into that, and letting that, it's just engulfing the whole space. It's really interesting. It's almost like there's been kind of this division that's been created. On the one side, it's completely clear, and it's the Pacific. And I'm kind of seeing like these turtles. They're just like all the way up there, and there's some fish floating around. But it's interesting. Turtles are showing up probably because we were talking about them not too long ago with somebody who lives in Hawaii. And then on one side it's clear, and then on the other side of this kind of transparent division is all the stuff we've got to clear up. So that's good. And hello, Kayla just joined in too. So here we are. So Kayla, just I don't know when you jumped in, since my eyes were kind of closed in the inner space, but I'm feeling the ocean. I feel like I'm totally submersed in the ocean. So again, deep breath in, and let's start clearing this. So everybody just come into your core alignment. Oh, and yes, because everybody becomes part of these clearings. It's an amazing experience, I think, for everybody from the feedback that I've gotten. If you're live or listening to this later, actually. And so one of the ways of being a participant in that, as well as just following along, but is coming into that core essence, that core channel. Your spine. The core channel is just an energetic structure that is pretty much aligned with the spine, maybe a little bit in front of it, but they overlap. That's like our core channel, our core essence. And really coming, very nicely coming into that. So getting everybody in place here. And this is about us radiating the light. Radiating the light, and that it acting as a beacon for the rest of for anybody out there who needs it. So interesting comment from Bhavna. I see the Arabian Sea is clean and the Bay of Bengal side dirty. It could be, I'm wondering if that's kind of connected to the flow of the water. Like there is a specific flow in the Atlantic Ocean where it goes up the US-Canada coast and then comes down on the European side. So there's that kind of flow that happens over there. So I'm wondering if there's something to do with the flow up in those areas. But let's take a nice deep breath in. And it's just, so what I'm seeing is just kind of very dark, and it's bringing to mind oil tankers. Tankers. So kind of that's dark. It's interesting because it looks dark, but it's not really sludgy in the water. It's all the way down at the bottom. Okay. A lot of plane crashes. There's been some plane crashes out there. Some that have not been found yet that are still have disappeared off the map, kind of thing. Uh, Oil tankers, yeah. And that sludge being at the bottom of the ocean, so it's right now it's like working at shifting that silt that's fallen at the bottom of the ocean. It's not just it's not just from oil tankers. It's sort of like that silt from just over the centuries, over the eons. Things that boats that were burned at sea and all that stuff has to go somewhere. So it just kind of floats back down to the bottom of the ocean. So clearing that up. Shifting that. I'm pushing all the way up against the coast, the African coastline, and I know Madagascar is over on that side too. That's a pretty big island out there on that side. God, I feel like, yeah, it's like literally like having the sieve that's just collecting all that layer. Very kind of slimy feeling, but also kind of very hard to get because of the environment it's in. So there's always movement in the water, even at those very, very deep levels, even if they're really subtle movement. That kind of gets stirred up when there's earthquakes on deep inside, because the earthquakes just don't happen at the surface of the land. They go all the way through on the faults. So there's faults out. I feel like the faults are further on the, I'm looking at the map on the east side of that, but that kind of creates this movement that's there. So things are not, hi, Catherine, thanks for joining in. So just jump right in, come in and get anchored into your physical body and presence and kind of come into your core channel. I feel like we're floating and surrounded in water, in that water environment. And we've started at the bottom of the ocean, just lifting up that, shifting out that silt, that dirty silt that's at the bottom, accumulation of stuff of there's all sorts of stuff down there. So I've mentioned oil tankers, or when boats have burned, or dead bodies, that anything, whatever wasn't eaten up on the way down, kind of thing. As weird as that sounds, they're pirating a lot of stuff from pirating. Yeah, so just acting as this sieve. I figured it would be really nice to do just the ocean because it was such a beautiful experience last time, and so a bit less of some of those traumatic things that have come up in some of these countries. And God, the ocean, the it's just a really interesting, it's interesting you brought up feminine earlier, Bhavna, because it's like there's this sense of, it's like I feel the ocean all around me, and there's a very nurturing feeling to it. So I assume it's just this, it's there, it's kind of supporting the work, us doing the work to clear up the human trash here. Yeah, this is interesting because it's the Pacific. We had all these, it's not showing up so far in the Indian Ocean, but in the Pacific, there's all these islands out there. And so there was a lot of the cultures that that are so tied to the ocean showing up in the Pacific Ocean. And here it just feels like it's this vast vast body of water that is there. All right, let's take a nice deep breath in. I'm gonna like focus on just that purity of the ocean. Ha, there we go. Now I'm seeing some people, spirits of people who have died rising out of the water. So, wow, that's interesting. There was like uh, individuals, and then there was also groups, like as if like a whole boat had sunk. Um, kind of thing. So it's everybody that was on the boat just like sunk, sunk with the boat and died. So groups of spirit. It's interesting because it's kind of feeling like a mass suicide. That's kind of bizarre because you don't think that this would happen at sea, but I don't know the circumstances of either some of these boats. This goes back, yeah, these are kind of old schooner type boats. Um, so the sense that they were either under attack and no way out, no provisions left, no land in sight, and so it's kind of like a mass suicide effect. There we go. All right, that's starting to come through. That's good. Helping these people shift and come into a higher state of consciousness and release whatever's they're holding on to that's keeping them there. Some of them not knowing they've died. That's showing up. That's interesting. Yeah. So up over on the Asian side, at the top of this stretch of water, I'm drawn to that side. And what's interesting is it's like I kind of have the sense it's India, but yeah, Indian continent, and also over on the other side, where it's the water seems clean enough, but then there's this residue that's just stuck to against the side of the landmass that's underwater there. Uh, and there's some weird shit that's there. Uh, kind of just weird things happening to people by people. Kind of like murder, but it feels like there's also a lot of kind of magic stuff. Ooh, yeah, that really brings up Indonesia area. I want to say Bali, but that area, Thailand, a lot of magic stuff going on, and somehow that's come into the water. But it's interesting because it's just kind of like it's almost like the land was acting like a magnet, and it's all against the sides there. So let's clear that up. Oh. So there's a sense that connects up to that elemental magic. So because there's such a huge body of water that people really were tapping into that. People throw the remnants of black magic in water. Yes, that's part of it. The other things that's coming up. So it is black magic. But elemental magic, so it's the use of elements in magic spells and things like that. That's just a specific flavor of magic, of a magic practice. There's also a lot of magic with calling forth like demons and entities, and oh yeah, So that's coming into that's like seeping out of the land. But it's really interesting how that was just kind of almost like the water was just pushing it back against the land, saying, "We don't want this." Uh, that's kind of very interesting. Yeah. So let's clear that up because it's like kind of having this uh, a scratch, like you've scraped your skin off, and it's always there. So yeah, maybe you have a bandage on top of that, but that scrape not healing, you have that, and it's just not healing up. So that's the same thing with water, and it's just kind of there. So, and not just the water, but it's the whole life of the water. Uh, yeah, remnants. We'll get that probably around Africa because I lived in the Gabon, which is on the west side of Africa. And during our training, I was with the Peace Corps. And during our training, this one guy found on the beach. It was a voodoo doll for that had been used on somebody for a love spell. He found that on the beach, so it was just floating out there and just washed up on the beach. So yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to go to Southeast Asia too. That's wow. There's a lot of magic stuff there. Okay, everybody, take a deep breath in. I'm gonna like move you over here because that's just weird shit that you don't want to get involved with. So there you go. Putting in your own little space, your viewing space up here. Good. Here we go. Oh, yeah, we need to go a little bit into the land here, actually, off the water. That actually carried over into the water. Okay, so all the stuff that I said before, but also because through pirates, um, Sri Lanka, revenge feeling, yeah, and water used to create that magic you're speaking of. Yep, that's what I'm calling elemental magic, where you're using the elements. So yeah, absolutely, yeah. Uh, yeah, there's a lot of that in India. Of course, we've cleared India, at least a layer of India. There's a lot of that, and that's kind of hidden behind the religion, quote unquote, behind like the worshiping of the gods. And so there's a way that it was kind of hidden in India. It's behind the scenes, but there has been a lot of nasty practices over there too. So um, yeah, that's coming through. That's like a different layer of clearing that we're doing here. That's there is some of that is hitting India that we're shifting. Okay, I'm gonna take a moment to go in a little deeper because I need to take care of this in a different way without speaking. So everybody just come into your core channel here as I do this. And you're over here in your own little viewing area, clear and bright over here, but just staying real centered in your, yeah, there we go. It's starting to, yeah, there we go. Well, it's starting to shift. Okay, that's still moving through. That's actually moving away from the continent, off of India, off of that on east of India and to the west also, and it's just flowing off. Wow, okay, going towards Australia. Yeah, it's interesting because in Australia, it feels like that was not originally, black magic was not originally there, but was brought in by external sources. So not from the Aborigine, but external sources. that brought it into Australia. Whoa. Okay. I'm going to focus on this more. Keep breathing into your core channel, guys. And it's needing to just hold that pure space internally and shift, bring that shifting. It's happening to this layer of darkness that has come through, of distortion that has come through the practices of black magic, and the Catholic religion over in the Philippines incorporated that into the religious practices. Wow, that gets really nasty. That's going to hit you either way. You think you're getting away from the black magic, so you go to the Catholic religion, and bam, it's like you get suckered in even more. So that's like a double whammy. So okay, but it's interesting because I'm seeing. So we're focusing on that because I'm seeing this big flow uh, of this dark thing through the water. So it is we're working on these pieces that are more kind of land culture people bound, um, but it is stuff that's been impacting the water because it's like you've got this flavor that runs through that whole area since the power of the water was called in for the magic. So I'm going to take a nice deep breath, and I'm going to dive in a little bit more deeply into this. There we go. It's kind of there's this extremely brightness in the center, and then it's sort of that effect if there was a helicopter in the way the wind pushes out in all directions, and I'm seeing the water that over the water in over the whole Indian Ocean. Oh, okay. Now there's all these. It's like these pieces that are breaking off, and then they're just rising out of the water. So holding that a little bit more strongly, a little bit longer. And just keep breathing into your core channels. Ugh, that's all lifting off. We're going to wait till that is completely lifted off. People who died on boats who froze to death. That's coming up over by Antarctica. Slowly lifting off. Oh, some sunken treasures out there. Flashes of gold coins that came up. And slowly shifting up, so we're not quite complete with this yet. Wow, this is a huge piece for this area. It's like this big block is being released. A lot of that also coming from the African coast. That's what we were talking earlier. All of it, pirates and black magic and all of that. It's almost like it's in this space. Everything is just being pulled in all together. We've got this big kind of cyclone energy that's going through the area. So yeah, a lot of cyclones and they don't call them hurricanes out there, but typhoons. Same kind of action that happen to rebalance the nature. And there's this fierceness of nature that's really showing up. Um, Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Okay, I am not familiar with those exactly where those are. Are those just closer to India? I'll have to look those up. Those are great names. I've never heard of those islands, but I'm not familiar with that area of the world. I haven't gone past like Madagascar on that side, so uh, yeah, big cyclone that's just kind of sucking everything up. Big funnel. Yeah, it's interesting. There's still a little fine channel of like that spout part of the it's pulling up of the funnel. And it's like this little tiny funnel that goes all it's going all the way to the bottom of the ocean and it's kind of like sucking everything up. A lot of trash down there. All sorts of weird stuff, like things that just fell off the boat, like shoes, sneakers, and of course plastic bottles and uh, all sorts of items of such nature. It's just sucking them all up. All right, let's really amp that up. Here we go. Wow. It's like a big bull coming up. Nice. That's a big chunk that got released. Yeah, now we're hitting the Madagascar. Madagascar and channeling through. That's the Mozambique channel over there, but we're going to include that because it's just wide open to the Indian Ocean. A lot of islands, yeah. So there's some islands out there. There's not a lot. There's a lot less than like a Pacific island, the Pacific area. But there are some islands, yeah. Little islands, like Madagascar is huge, but little islands. Yeah, more island magic stuff. Wow, it's like the name of the game this session. So we're just going to bring that deeper level of purity to all of this. So it's interesting because at least on this side, yeah, more so on this side, but it's this flavor. There's this flavor of purity in the magic. So turned into black magic, but it feels like at the beginning, in its origin, there was this purity and this connection to nature. So it was really about this connection to nature. That was there, and then it just slowly got twisted and twisted and twisted into darkness. So that's clearing out. So that history, getting back to the origins. Oh, we're gonna have to do Antarctica too. That's kind of this landmass that technically, well, it's really not a country. It's just a bunch of people over there tromping around, scientists, but now a lot of tourists going over there, leaving their crap down there. There's a lot of history in to clear out of the Antarctic, and that's in the ice. Okay, that's feeling a lot brighter. So it's still going through a lot of shifting here, but this whole body of water and the land edges are feeling much brighter. And there's a nice calm that's coming through, kind of that feeling of that deafening silence, but it feels a little lighter than deafening silence. And there's just a level of purity that's coming through here. So just take a nice deep breath in, coming in to your core, that core connection for yourselves even more, letting yourself get grounded to the earth even more as this comes through. And it's not that this is negative, but this is to come into the power of your being, regardless, because we can easily get taken over by something that is of a positive value because it's a higher frequency level than what we're at. And this brightness, yeah, brightness just coming in. Wow, spreading through that whole area and pushing into the land masses that it's touching, pushing back on people, basically, pushing back on the human factor. Wow, yeah. So just allow yourself to kind of in your center be in this space. It's a very there's a it's very still. very pure. So we're just going to allow ourselves to sit in. Um, I see some of the gods clapping. That's cute. Yeah, it's kind of fun to see the reaction from the non-physical side. Yeah, I seem to recall that when we did India, it's like the gods just wanted to like hang up the hat, and it's like, okay, we're done with this. We're done with this role. We're going on vacation now. We're not going to put up with you guys. With the, we just don't want to go through this whole rigmarole of being worshipped and all this stuff. We're walking this kind of thing. It was kind of funny. So you remind me of that. It's like, okay, you're just here to watch the show, but it's like, this is your ball game now, basically. Uh, Time to step up to your own and be your own gods. So coming back into that purity, yeah, God. And just letting ourselves really soak this in and be present with this. It's kind of the sense I have is that it's actually spreading across the whole planet. So just over everything. It's preparation 1221. And it's part of the preparation for 1221 for what's coming up with that. It's going to be a big, and we say 1221, but it's going to be there's like a precise time in the human mind, but it's kind of there's this buildup, and then it kind of hits this climax, but it's kind of this chunk of time. We're not talking about days, but we're talking about all I hear is a chunk of moments um, around that precise time that is out there in terms of when that conjunction and that alignment happens. So let's let that kind of go over the whole planet. Again, just staying anchored in your physical body and your core channels, your core, and your connection to the earth. Okay, well, that was a nice shift. What I'm starting to feel now is like on the land masses is kind of this celebration that's happening, this feeling of celebration. So it's checking into the ocean itself, the waters, and the creatures of the ocean. Yeah. Okay. Let's push that further past those waterways on that west side. So to the south end of Africa, Madagascar and Africa. And into up towards the Saudi Arabian Peninsula there. And yeah, there we go. Okay, so again, this deep stillness, that feels like just the water. A sense of kind of creatures, ocean creatures that are just around. Dolphins. Yeah, it's interesting because it feels like they're just kind of curious. They're just and being friendly. That's too funny. Yeah. Uh, um, yeah, and there's a playfulness. Okay, that's pushing. There's some more stuff that's getting pushed back. General. Okay. Um, deep breath in, bringing some fresh, renewing energies in, and then just releasing, coming into your physical bodies, and into your physical spaces. It's kind of left at a deep, deep space of clearing and settling. So it feels like it's we done. Yes. Okay. So we're done for this clearing. There's still some. Uh, it's kind of setting. It's soaking in. It's setting. Uh, and that's going to continue on after we close up here. Close up shop. So, any other comments besides that's too funny? I know what you're referring to. You're about what I said earlier about the the reactions from the other side comment. It's a very deep, fairly still space right now. It's just very kind of calm. So I will, let's see, I'm going to end this on over here on this side. And